Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7x7. So here we are, finally in the week where Solo: A Star Wars Story releases, and we are coming off the weekend with Deadpool 2. So the unusual thing about the Deadpool release, I'll remind you, is that it was actually slated to come out on June 1st, and for some reason Fox decided to jump the movie ahead of Solo: A Star Wars Story and put it out on May 18th. This was a few months back they made that decision. And so far it seems like, it's done well, and the movie itself has done well, the decision and the movie. So the movie didn't quite open as strong as the original Deadpool, and it's just a few $1 million off. It wasn't a big deal, like 126 million for the opening. And so this is a bit of inside baseball stuff that we're talking about. I guess this would be our first Jedi business episode related to the release of Solo: A Star Wars Story. Now, as far as that jump, one of the things that had been posited as a reason why they decided to do this, why Fox decided to do this, was that they thought there was blood in the water, if you will, with Solo: A Star Wars Story, and that if they jumped it ahead, that they could assume safely enough that they would continue to make good money even after Solo was released. And of course, they were looking down the barrel of The Incredibles 2 not long after that. Now, granted, R-rated movie versus PG-13 and PG-rated movies, you're kind of talking about apples and oranges to some degree. So I went back to look at some history to see what we might be able to learn from how Deadpool originally performed and what that might tell us about Deadpool 2 and how it may or may not affect the fortunes of Solo: A Star Wars Story when it comes out in theaters. So there's this thing called CinemaScore, and if you haven't heard of CinemaScore, I did talk about it a bit when we had the last Jedi release, and that is exit polling of people who watched the movie on opening night in a number of different cities, a couple of dozen at least. And so it's much more accurate as far as getting a gauge on how a movie is going to perform at the box office than, say, the user ratings on sites like IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes or anything like that. And it's sort of critic proof in a way as well. I mean, it's just, what do people think? I mean, the whole critic proof thing, I guess I should caveat that by saying that, yeah, maybe critic reviews ahead of a movie's release might dampen its opening night or whatever, but as far as user ratings go, well, you can't fake that whatsoever. Not in this particular instance, at least. So, well, all right. Here I'm doubting myself on this one. So yeah, maybe you could. Maybe if a bunch of people want to go hate watch Solo: A Star Wars Story and then give bad user ratings, but it seems like a long way to go. So let's just forget about that scenario. Anyway, we're talking about Deadpool 2. So it got an A rating from CinemaScore, and that generally translates to what they call a 3.6 multiplier, which means that whatever it got for box office grosses on opening day weekend, multiply that by 3.6, and that's what it's going to turn out to be. However, that was the same score that the original Deadpool got, and it did not perform up to its 3.6 multiplier. In fact, it made about 100 million less than predicted. And what's important to flag about that fact is that Deadpool 2, the original Deadpool, did not have any competition in terms of new releases until its fourth week of release when Zootopia came out. Other than that, it was just, the remaining dregs of Kung Fu Panda and then a couple of random weird movies like Risen and Race, and you don't remember any of those. So what does it matter? But the fact that it still fell $100 million short of its expectations, even without significant competition, should tell you that it doesn't seem like it's going to be a movie that dampens the overall performance of Solo: A Star Wars Story. And so we're going to talk more Jedi business in the next couple of days and talk about how Solo is going to perform at the box office and whether the whole user rating foo-fa-ra is going to have an effect on it this time around. And I guess maybe I shouldn't call it Jedi business because it's not a Skywalker Saga movie. Maybe we'll call it Scoundrel business and leave it at that. So we've got that coming up this week as we get ramped up for Solo: A Star Wars Story. And again, it is still safe week here on the podcast, so you're not going to hear anything that you don't want to hear that might spoil your experience of Solo: A Star Wars Story when you go to see it in the theater. So that's going to do it for the podcast today. Over on the audio version, I'm going to do Last Jedi Trivia, so do check that out at sw7x7.com/iTunes or wherever you like to listen to your podcasts. But for now, it just remains for me to say thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.